What if I told you that a 36-year-old president from one of Africa's smallest nations single-handedly brought down the most powerful leader in the world? What if I told you he did it with nothing but the truth, a phone call, and nerves of steel? This isn't fiction. This is the incredible true story of how President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso exposed a corruption scandal so massive it shook the entire world. Picture this, it's a sweltering morning in May 2025 in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré is sitting in his office, probably thinking about infrastructure deals and trade agreements, when suddenly his finance minister, Dr. Aminata Tall, bursts through his door with an encrypted folder. Her hands are shaking, and she can barely get the words out, "Mr. President, you need to see this immediately." Now, when your finance minister looks like she's seen a ghost, you know something big is about to go down. Ibrahim opens that folder, and what he sees inside changes everything. We're talking about bank records, email chains, and financial documents that reveal something absolutely mind-blowing. Are you ready for this? The documents showed that billions of dollars meant for African development projects had been systematically stolen. Not by some random criminal organization. Not by corrupt local officials. But by the American president himself. Let me break this down for you. We're talking about $2.3 billion that was supposed to build schools, hospitals, and clean water systems across Africa. Instead, this money was being funneled into personal accounts to pay for luxury resort renovations and campaign expenses. While children in Africa were dying from preventable diseases, this money was being used to buy gold-plated bathroom fixtures. Dr. Tall's cybersecurity team had verified everything. These weren't fake documents or propaganda. These were genuine files from the U.S. Treasury Department that had been intercepted during routine monitoring of international financial flows. The evidence was rock solid. Ibrahim sits back in his chair, and you can imagine what's going through his mind. Here's a man who spent his entire political career fighting corruption in his own country. He's seen firsthand how stolen money affects real people. And now he's staring at evidence that the leader of the free world is doing the exact same thing, but on a scale that's almost impossible to comprehend. The deeper they dug, the worse it got. The investigation revealed a complex web of shell companies with names like African Development Initiative and Sahel Progress Foundation. These organizations existed on paper only. They were created specifically to hide the fact that development money was being diverted to personal accounts. Here's where it gets really disturbing. An email from the president's personal lawyer literally said, "The president wants the African funds redirected to the campaign immediately. Make it look legitimate." Another document showed that $847 million designated specifically for Burkina Faso's healthcare system had been used to pay for legal fees and personal expenses. Think about that for a moment. While mothers in Burkina Faso were walking miles to find clean water for their children, that money was being used to renovate a luxury resort. While young people were joining extremist groups because they had no opportunities, $1.2 billion meant for anti-terrorism initiatives was sitting in private accounts. Ibrahim wasn't just angry. He was heartbroken. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust, about the relationship between nations, about the most vulnerable people in the world being exploited by someone who was supposed to be their ally. So what do you do when you discover that the most powerful person in the world is stealing from your people? Ibrahim had a choice. He could stay quiet and let it continue, or he could risk everything to expose the truth. The safe choice would have been to keep silent. Nobody would have blamed him. After all, what could a small African nation do against the United States? But Ibrahim didn't choose safety. He chose justice. His team worked around the clock to document everything. Every dollar, every transaction, every lie. They prepared a comprehensive report that would be impossible to deny or deflect. But before going public, Ibrahim decided to do something that shows just how much integrity this man has. He decided to give the American president a chance to explain himself. Picture this scene, it's 9 a.m. in Ouagadougou, 3 a.m. in Washington. Ibrahim deliberately chose this time because he knew his counterpart would be awake and potentially off guard. He picks up that secure phone, dials the number, and after several transfers, a familiar voice answers, "This is President Trump." "Who's this?" "Mr. President, this is Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. I need to discuss an urgent matter with you." The response? "Burkina what?" "Listen, kid, I'm busy. Make it quick." Already, you can feel the disrespect. But Ibrahim stays calm and professional. He explains that they've discovered serious irregularities in the African development funds. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. I don't know what you're talking about. Ibrahim calmly presents the evidence. Bank records showing $2.3 billion in diverted funds. Money meant for African infrastructure projects redirected to personal accounts. And then something incredible happens. The mask starts to slip. You're lying. Who told you this garbage? But Ibrahim keeps going. He mentions the documentation, the shell companies, the email communications. And that's when the American president completely loses it. This is fake news. You're probably working with the Democrats to frame me. Ibrahim presents more evidence. Wire transfers to the resort, $847 million that should have built hospitals. And then comes the threat that changes everything. Listen here, you little dictator. I don't know what game you're playing, but you're messing with the wrong person. Did you catch that? The President of the United States just called a democratically elected African leader a dictator and threatened him. But Ibrahim doesn't back down. He offers 48 hours to return the stolen funds voluntarily. The response? You're making the biggest mistake of your life. I'll crush you like a bug. And then Ibrahim says something that gives me chills every time I think about it. Mr. President, that sandbox country has the evidence that could end your presidency. The call ends with more threats, more denials, and a complete admission of guilt. The American president had just threatened a foreign leader on a recorded line while trying to justify stealing money from the world's poorest people. Now, most people would be terrified at this point. You've just made an enemy of the most powerful person in the world. But Ibrahim? He gets to work. Within hours, his office is transformed into a war room. Secure communications equipment, legal experts, international relations specialists. They're preparing for war, but their weapon is truth. And sure enough, the retaliation comes fast. American military ships are redirected toward West African waters. It's intimidation, plain and simple. But Ibrahim isn't backing down. He places his defense forces on high alert and coordinates with neighboring countries for mutual support. Then something beautiful happens. The African Union rallies behind their colleague. Presidents from Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa all call to offer support. When the American president tries to isolate Ibrahim by calling other African leaders, most refuse to take his calls. Those who do tell him to address the corruption allegations properly. The international media catches wind that something big is happening. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, they're all requesting interviews. Social media starts buzzing with hashtags before Ibrahim has even released anything official. The world is watching. Ibrahim makes the decision that changes everything. He calls an emergency press conference for that afternoon. By 1:30 p.m., the presidential palace is surrounded by international media. Reporters from around the world had flown in overnight, sensing the story of the century. At exactly 2 p.m., Ibrahim walks into that press room. The place goes dead silent. He approaches the podium, and his first words send shockwaves around the world. Ladies and gentlemen of the international press, I come before you today with evidence of systematic theft by the American government. The room erupts. Ibrahim raises his hand for silence and continues, over the past 18 months, the American administration has stolen $2.3 billion in funds designated for African development projects. He clicks to his first slide. Bank transfer records. Documents verified by international forensic accountants. Money meant for hospitals, schools, and clean water projects diverted to personal accounts. The journalists are frantically taking notes. Then comes the slide that makes everyone's jaw drop. An invoice showing $12 million in African healthcare money used to purchase gold-plated bathroom fixtures for a luxury resort. The room is stunned into silence. A reporter asks if Ibrahim has confronted the American president about these allegations. Ibrahim's response is devastating. I spoke with him yesterday. He admitted to the diversions, called them strategic reallocation, and threatened military action against Burkina Faso. The revelation sends shockwaves through the room. The American president had threatened a foreign leader over corruption allegations. And Ibrahim had it all on tape. Within minutes of the press conference ending, the story explodes across global media. Breaking news banners light up screens worldwide. In Washington, the White House is in complete chaos. Staff members are scrambling to respond as phone calls flood in from reporters around the world. The press secretary tries to deny everything, calling them baseless allegations from a disgruntled foreign leader. But reporters aren't buying it. They've seen the bank records. They've heard the recorded conversation. The American president starts tweeting frantically, calling it fake news and another witch hunt. But his tweets only make things worse. He accidentally admits to the reallocation of funds, claiming it was totally legal. Democratic leaders immediately call for investigations. The European Union demands an independent inquiry. The African Union demands immediate return of stolen funds. The UN Security Council schedules an emergency session. Financial markets react negatively to the scandal. The dollar drops 3% against major currencies as investors worry about America's international credibility. Approval ratings plummet 8 points overnight. But the most damaging evidence is the audio recording of the threatening phone call. Americans hear their president admit to diverting funds and threatening a foreign leader. The political fallout is swift and merciless. Within 72 hours, everything falls apart. The FBI opens a formal investigation and confirms that approximately $2.3 billion in African development funds were diverted to accounts controlled by the president and his associates. The evidence matches Ibrahim's revelations exactly. Even Republican leaders can't defend the indefensible. The House begins impeachment proceedings immediately. The Senate Majority Leader calls it morally reprehensible. Cabinet members start considering resignation rather than be complicit in the cover-up. The final press conference is a disaster. The president appears disheveled, his usual confidence replaced by desperate anger. He rambles about fake news and African dictators, but when pressed on specific evidence, he can't provide coherent answers. Within hours, the vice president is meeting with cabinet members about invoking the 25th Amendment. The president's mental state is clearly deteriorating under pressure. His final tweets are incoherent and quickly deleted, but screenshots spread across social media. In the end, Ibrahim Traoré achieved something unprecedented. A leader of a small African nation held the American president accountable for corruption. The stolen funds were frozen, investigated, and eventually returned to Africa with interest. Truth and courage had triumphed over power and intimidation. This story isn't just about corruption or politics. It's about the power of one person to stand up for what's right, even when facing impossible odds. Ibrahim could have stayed silent. He could have chosen safety over justice. But he didn't. He chose to be the voice for people who couldn't speak for themselves. It's a reminder that real leadership isn't about having the biggest military or the most money. It's about having the courage to do what's right, even when it costs you everything. Ibrahim Traoré proved that day that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the world is simply telling the truth. What do you think? Would you have had the courage to make that phone call? Would you have risked everything to expose the truth? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story inspired you as much as it inspired me, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of courage and justice. Because the world needs more people like Ibrahim Traoré, and the more we share these stories, the more we inspire others to stand up for what's right. Until next time, remember, the truth always wins in the end. It might take time, it might be dangerous, but it always wins. Stay strong, stay brave, and never stop fighting for justice.